Excellent. Okay, welcome everybody. We have another full house this morning. Great. Welcome to Democrats of the Red Rocks Educational Breakfast. We have these monthly, the third Friday of
Okay,
every
well,
month.
very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Who was that? Kelly? We need to mute people. I'm Ellen Ferreira. I'm the president of Democrats of the Red Rocks. We have a very active board and membership, and no more active than it's going to be over the next few months. Since we met last time, just since we met last time, 1 little month ago, we have had the Chevron decision. We have had Trump versus US, AKA President Sir King's decision from the Supreme Court. We've had the infamous debate, followed by a split within the Democratic Party over whether Biden should remain at the top of the ticket, despite having had 14 million people vote in their Democratic primaries that Biden should be at the top of the ticket, and the fact that he is maintaining that he will be the candidate. There is still quite a bit of dissension amongst the Democratic ranks, which is frankly the last thing we need right now. Former President Trump was shot at a rally. President Biden got COVID, and Bob Newhart died, which is sad in and of itself, all of these things. So I think this is not a really enthusiastic time for Democrats. This is, we've taken quite a pounding, and I know people here, we could use a pep talk, and things will not fall apart. We had a session the other night about how to cope with the anxiety that comes with all of these types of events, because one of the things we don't want to do is just turn off and tune out and say, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's overwhelming, because yes, it is indeed overwhelming, and it's going to continue to be overwhelming. So we have to get used to that. But the worst thing that can happen for us is for us to be distracted and divided. We have lots of things going on that are very important that are happening prior to the election in November 5th. We've got lots of voter education to do just about the ballot initiatives. The ballot is going to be 2, possibly 3 pages long. I'm not sure yet, but it's going to be long, and people need to be educated about what all these initiatives mean, because sometimes the language is confusing. So on the converse, on the good side, there is a lot of good stuff happening. Toby was there in Phoenix when the abortion action, Arizonans for Abortion Access, turned in 823,000 petitions, more than double the number of signatures that were needed. And it was a very emotional moment. Toby took a video, a Ryder truck backed up, pallets of petitions were unloaded, all shrink wrapped so that they would be safe and not tampered with. And it was a beautiful, uplifting moment, because I know that so many people here and people watching did so much to gather signatures during this drive. And it was an empowering feeling. And so many people just said, where can I sign? Where can I sign? They were very enthusiastic about it. So congratulations to us on that. There's an organization called Red, Wine, and Blue. I don't know if you've heard of it. It started small, like all organizations, and has grown and grown and grown. Well, Red, Wine, and Blue had a webinar this week with Heather Cox Richardson, who I think many of us know of and many of us read. She's a history professor, lives in Maine. She's got a good take on things. Red, White, and Blue set up a webinar, and 42,000 people attended that webinar.
I was one of them.
I was one of them. Holly was one of them. George was one of them. 42,000 people that is saying a lot. And she was great, and I urge you to follow her column if you don't already. So good things are happening. People are calling the DORR office every day to volunteer. This is Leanna Hollingsworth sitting in the back row there. She called up, she says, how can I help? What can I do? And there are lots of people like Leanna that are doing that. We have hundreds of postcards that are being written, urging people to register to vote. We are doing literature drops. We are doing canvassing. We are active. I have signs here. If anybody wants to pick up a lawn sign, you're more than welcome. There are plenty more in the DORR office. We are having a watch party the night of July the 30th, the night of the big election. It will be right in that breezeway outside of the DORR office. Scott, our mayor, has offered to bring a large cordless fan so that if it's really hot, we will have fans, and others who want to attend, please bring fans. I just wanted to also mention the picnic. DORR will have a candidates picnic, and we have invited a lot of candidates. It will be at the hub on September 15th. You'll be getting a save the date email this week. But those picnics are always a lot of fun, and it's going to be in the afternoon, and it's a Sunday afternoon, and we've heard from several people already that they're going to be there. Everyone running, the Democrats running for the Corporation Commission will all be there. Clean Slate for Democracy running in LD1 will be there. Jonathan Nez running for Congress will be there, and we're hoping that possibly Ruben Gallego, if he can make it, that he would be there too. And so these are always fun events, and we're looking forward to being there together. And if anybody wants to volunteer to help with the picnic in any way, please see Toby there in the back of the room. Okay, Mr. Mayor has volunteered. Okay, let me see. I've announced all of that. Again, if you have not, one more thing, there will be a fundraiser for Jonathan Nez. Carol Redenbaugh and her husband Roger live in the village of Oak Creek up of Verde Valley School Road. They're hosting a fundraiser for Jonathan Nez, and it will also be a meet and greet for our LD1 candidates on August the 3rd. August the 3rd, it's a cocktail party, and she has a very nice home, and I've been to her house for fundraisers before, and she puts on a great spread. So the invitations will be going out shortly, but again, August the 3rd, 5 to 7, Carol Redenbaugh's house. One other thing I wanted to just mention is that you probably saw on the notice that we are, whoever feels like it, and whoever feels like having discussion, because this is not really good discussion forum, we're going to the Golden Goose right after this event ends. We're going to be in that side room over there. We can talk about whatever we want to. This is just an open discussion so we can get together and chat. So to do that, we need to know how many people intend to come, and our speakers are welcome as well. The Golden Goose is right across the street here. It's very close. Toby will call the restaurant and get a reservation for however many people. So if you would like to come and join us, please raise your hand. Okay.
Registered.
7.
I have some names already.
Okay, so sounds like 7 in the room here. Either of you guys?
I won't be able to come.
I know you-
I've got an appointment at 1.
Okay, I know you guys are very busy.
If after this, you feel like you haven't had all of your questions answered, I am ready and available.
Okay,
So we'll kind of see how the day goes.
all right, cool. George Lee, our programs chair. Oh, right. Before we start the program, Steve Hanks wants to tell us about something new and exciting that's happening in his life. So Steve, why don't you come on up, please?
I just have a minute after Steve.
Yeah, sure.
He's gonna upstage me.
Uh,
How about that? Hey, everybody. As some of you may know, maybe some of you don't, since February, I've had a radio show on KAZM, AM and FM, right here in Sedona. called Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks. It's been a lifestyle show. Had different people from all walks of life in Sedona on. I've actually had a show about the city council where the mayor was on, and Holly and Kathy were on. I've had Ellen on when I did a show with Jonathan Nez when we first started, but it's not really a politics show. And because of that, and because I am ready to like go out of my mind, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today, I've decided to launch a new show strictly about politics.
Yeah.
And it's starting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Right after the crazy Rush Limbaugh wannabe who does a show between 7 and 8 every morning. And by the way, when I'm driving up to do my Sedona Life show at 9 o'clock, I listen to that show stupidly. And I almost drive off the road a couple of times. Anyway, so the show's starting at 8 o'clock. It's called The Patriotic Progressive. And I will explain what that means during the show tomorrow morning. It's going to be every Saturday, 8 to 9 a.m., but it's also available to be live streamed on the website, Mellow Mountain Radio website. And also I'm going to be doing podcast versions after the show airs. So, and I will be posting those links. So if you don't hear it live at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can get it on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff. So tomorrow should be interesting. I wish I had something to talk about. I'll do the best I can to fill an hour.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope you guys listen going forward and tomorrow. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And our mayor, Scott Jablow.
I would like to commend DORR with the positions taken for.
Do you want to come up here so people
okay.
can see you? Yeah.
I just love being on camera.
I know, it's just that we have people.
Okay,
on
sure.
Zoom.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to commend this organization and DORR and Ellen and the board for taking such a hard support for Nikki Check. Most people know that there's been some pushback. Obviously, the ads from DORR really hit a nerve with Supervisor Michael's campaign. She's very nervous about the campaign. She rightfully should be. What's interesting that I found is that the people who are pushing back in support of Supervisor Michaels are all Republicans. All hard right Republicans. I know every name, I know where they stand on all the issues. These are the people coming to the defense of Supervisor Michaels. So I think that says a lot of the position that DORR has taken. They were spot on. I know all the issues that were discussed in the ads and in any kind of correspondence, and they were spot on. And this proves categorically why DORR made the right decision amongst other issues. So I just want to show my appreciation. I've taken a hard line to support Nikki Check, as everyone knows, as well as our other candidates on our side for the city council. I don't think any of those our candidates are in any kind of peril at all, but we really need to all work to continue to support Nikki Check because she's the real deal.
Okay.
So thank you again to DORR.
Hey, thank you.
Good morning. Our program this morning is basically focused on voting rights and potential restrictions. And what I would like to do first is introduce the Democratic candidate for county recorder in Coconino County that the DORR board has endorsed. And this is our first opportunity to hear directly from her. She has not been in elective politics, but she has been very active in local politics in the Democratic Party. And these are the kinds of people that we need right now who have perhaps not a whole lot of experience, but have the enthusiasm and the drive to put forward an agenda that will provide fair and open elections and registration. So I would like to introduce Aubrey Sonderreger.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As George said, my name is Aubrey Sonderreger. I pulled papers to run for office this last September for county recorder. Our great county recorder in Coconino County, Patty Hansen, is finally retiring. She's been threatening it for several election cycles now and just hasn't found the right time. So big shoes to fill. I know that a lot of the folks in this room are not going to be able to vote for me. I believe there's only 2 precincts in Sedona that are in Coconino County as well. So right now, we're just talking about, making sure that all of our recorders are going to uphold voting rights. And, Patty's shoes are going to be really big to fill. She's been a tireless warrior for voting rights. I got involved in politics in 2016 when Trump got elected, and I looked at my then 3-year-old daughter and went, how will I ever look her in the eye again when she doesn't have any rights, if I don't do something right now. And so that was me launching into politics. I didn't know what a precinct was. I didn't know we had a state legislature. I, knew nothing about politics. From there, by 2018, I was in elected positions in our Coconino County Democratic Party. I was secretary. I've been second vice chair. I've been first vice chair. I have run voter registrations. I have done poll observing. I have run the logic and accuracy test observing. I have really worked at the ins and outs of how our voting system works up in Coconino County. So while I have not been in the office, I have certainly managed volunteers. I have worked the election system and really understood it. I've worked very hard to educate voters on what is going to be on their ballot. On that note, it's really important to make sure we spread information. Today's the last day. If we know anybody who's registered as an independent that would like to vote in our primaries, today's the last day, 5 p.m. They need to call into their county recorder and request a ballot by mail so that they can vote. And what I was at a town hall last night, and one of the things that I was asked was, what's my why? And why am I running for office? And this is an excellent question. Why does anyone run for office, honestly? I am running. When I first pulled papers, I was running against Bob Thorpe. Bob Thorpe is my Republican opponent in the general election this November. He is a Republican. He's been in the state legislature trying to pass voter suppression laws for several cycles. He would be an absolute disaster in our election systems. He does not believe in early voting, which is what the county recorder's office does. So that was my first why, is we cannot have somebody like that in our election system. But as I sat with it, my why kind of evolved, and it became, because this is something that suits me well, something that I care deeply about, something that aligns with my values and with my passions and with the work that I have been doing so far. And that, I'm doing it for my community. This is a service job. This is a job to serve everybody in your county. It's not a political platform. And I'm doing it for my children. I'll be darned if they're not going to grow up in a democracy, and my daughter is going to have rights to her body, and she is going to have the right to vote by the time she turns 18. And I'm doing it for our country. Our democracy itself is at stake right now. We have to stand up and make sure that we are defending it. And I think that's any questions, or shall I hand it over to Michelle? Or
You want to introduce Michelle?
okay.
Or
Yes.
good.
Michelle Burchill is right now the Yavapai County Recorder. She was appointed by the Board of Supervisors 2 years ago. And her background in voting goes back to March of of 2020, where she began as a voter registration specialist, and then moved up to being the assistant. Yeah, this is why I have my notes. Executive assistant to the recorder and the elections director, and then became promoted to elections manager before being appointed the recorder. And continuing this whole interest of hers in elections, she is currently seeking certification through Auburn University as a nationally certified election and registration administrator. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Michelle Burchill. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm the Yavapai County Recorder. So I heard her say, so I assume most people in here are Yavapai County voters?
Yes.
So everybody in Yavapai knows Yavapai votes, right? It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. If you are in Yavapai, you have a right to vote. You have a voice. You definitely have an opinion and you're not afraid to use it, right? So I would assume most of you probably have already voted. If you're on the active early voter list, get it done. I hate when people are on the early voter list and then they procrastinate and wait till last minute, or they're using taxpayer money, they're using our time, our services, and then they wait. And I get a lot of calls. I always let people know this. Every election day that I've worked for the last 4 years, I get calls from Yavapai voters that say, I waited till last minute, Michelle. What am I going to do? I can't make it. I'm sick. There was an accident. I couldn't leave work. And I said, well, you know, we gave you a good solid 27 days. So get it together, people. I am a Republican. I'm sure everybody knows that. So we probably do not agree on 90% of politics. But when I am wearing this badge, when I am in that room, when I am in that position, politics are not my thought. I may not like the outcome of some elections. You may not like the outcome of some elections, but my job, my oath of office, is to make sure that every ballot cast in Yavapai County gets voted, gets counted, and that we are providing a fair, transparent, free election. That's my goal. It's my passion. It's what I do. I have been married for 25 years. My husband and I met when I was 16. I was emancipated from the foster system. So I am a bit abrasive because I haven't had the easiest, you know, background in life. So a lot of times people go, gosh, you know, you're a little rough around the edges. I'm a product of my environment. So people call me a pit bull. If you're coming at me or you say something wrong, especially about my people, my family, or my workers, I'm going to bite back. With that said, I actually got into the political realm in 2015-ish. Again, similar to you, but opposite sides. I was listening to somebody say, hey, America first, you first. I'm going to put you guys first. And something woke in me saying, wow, this is the first time I felt like a president was saying, I'm going to focus on you, my family, before focusing on everything else. And that's what actually got me interested in politics. In 2016, I went to vote on election day at a local precinct. It was actually my daughter's elementary school back in California. And I had a really bad voting experience. And I left there that evening and I went home to my husband and I said, mark my words, somehow, some way, I will end up in elections. I said, there's got to be a better way. And I just, you know, going through the process and I went, oh, this should be more secure. Oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. And I kind of like didn't think about it too much after that. I had just in 2020 accepted a job with the state and was supposed to start in a week and a half. And an advertisement came up for a voter registration specialist for $15 an hour. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to put my name in that, right? I already know I'm going to take this other job. I'm going to be starting, but something just called to me. I went, and the day of the interview, they hired me on the spot. And then I called my husband and said, well, we're going to have to make some real changes. We're not getting new cars. We're not doing this or that because I'm taking a major pay cut here, but something told me I needed to see this through. And I'm very open that I was the election skeptic. I really planned on going in there and blowing things up in a way. You know, I'm going to expose all these ways that people are cheating or all the loopholes and all the things that are going wrong. And then I actually experienced it, and I was humbly shown that everything I thought I knew, I was wrong. The very first day was March 17th of 2020, and it was the day of the presidential preference election. I was told, Michelle, just come in and sit and soak it in. And so my mind is already going, right? Because I was trained not to trust the system, right? And I came in and I had access to everything. So I kind of looked at ballot processing. I looked at what was going on in voter registration, you know, dabbled a little bit on the side where tabulation was. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, if this departments are doing something wrong, where is it going to be? And I kind of followed the ballots. I followed the chain of custody through the process. Halfway through the day, me being myself, I am not one to sit around. I'm not one to be like, oh, I'm sitting in an office while everyone else works. I'll sweep the floors. I'll take out the trash. I don't care. I want to be useful. So I thought I'm going to at least answer the phone because it was going crazy, right? There's people, everybody on election day, it's wild. And my very first call, I picked up and I said, hi, this is voter registration. My name's Michelle Burchill and I'm new here today. So I just wanted to answer and let you know someone will get to you shortly. And the man said, I'm not waiting for anybody. I was just calling to let you know you need to drive yourself off a cliff and kill yourself. That was literally the first call that I got working in elections. And I hung the phone up and it was probably about 2 o'clock in the day. And I looked around and I went, wow, this really is a thankless job. These people in this room right now, moms, grandmas, husbands, fathers, these people aren't doing this because they get paid well. I just took a $15 an hour job, right? And they were hustling and the people were being mean and everybody's, you know, just on hypersensitive, you know, emotion. And I just went, wow, like I'm coming from an outside judging something that I knew nothing about and judging these people and I knew nothing about them. I didn't know what their politics were. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was at that moment, every single one of them were working their asses off to make sure your votes count. And I thought, okay, I belong here. Like this is what I needed. The end of the night, it was about maybe 8:45, 9 o'clock, and the count was off. Everything has to match. And we were off by one ballot, like at this time. Of voter registration check-ins to ballots cast at that time. And it was going to continue throughout the night. And everything in the building stopped. And everyone started just pulling stuff back out and manually going through, looking through all these affidavits, all these envelopes, all this stuff. And they found it about 45 minutes later. The whole time I'm going, damn, I've been here all day. I'm tired. Like it's one ballot. It's one vote. And I really thought that. I went like, okay, everyone's being a little dramatic right now. It's just one vote. But it really showed me every vote really does count, right? I mean, it was such a serious thing to them that I just went, wow, all these things that I feel like I took for granted, you know, moving into that realm, like it was such an enlightening, awakening moment that I just knew this is where I'm supposed to be. So somehow I end up here, right? My predecessor, Leslie Hoffman, had been in the role for about 10 years. She's been a Yavapai County resident her whole life. And after 2020, we really started to see, you know, the change my husband and I have been coming to Yavapai County for about 20 years. My in-laws live in Chino. And we've always come here, and every time we would leave it and go back to California, we'd be like, gosh, it was so nice there. Like, I wish we could go back, because, you know, you go to a grocery store and everyone says hi and you have chit chat and, you know, everybody's nice. You're not having road rage incidents and people just being abrasive. And I saw that change in temperature after 2020 of our community starting to fracture a little bit. Even, you know, not even just the political side, but just people in general. Like we kind of started just not being as friendly as we could be. And unfortunately, that spilled over into the elections world. As everybody's seen, you know, we see a lot more threats, a lot more security issues, things like that. And Leslie Hoffman, who I worked for, I would be at everything with her. I was her sidekick, and I really started to see her be treated very, very badly. And she is a staunch Republican. You know, she is a Second Amendment girl. She, you know, she's the epitome of what a conservative is. And we had people out there just really treating her badly. And her final thing was her dogs were poisoned. Both of her little, what does she have? Those short ones with the little short legs. Corgis. And again, she's lived in her place for years and years. All of her neighbors, you have to go out of your way to go to her house, right? And both of them almost died. The vet said they were given some sort of toxin. I just recently had a security update where we heard this happened to another election official in Arizona. So this is a thing. She finally kind of said, you know, this is it. I can't do this anymore. And I couldn't blame her. Within 59 days during the 2022 election cycle, we lost our elections manager. I took that position. And then as soon as I accepted, our elections director gave her notice. And then as soon as she gave her notice, Leslie gave her notice. So we lost three of our top people, 40 years of institutional knowledge. We lost within 59 days of each other during the 2022 election cycle. And I was on edge. I worked 70 days straight. 70 days straight, every Saturday, every Sunday, my daughter's 18th birthday, 4th of July, Labor Day, everything, every single day. And I started to develop some physical issues. My doctor was telling me, hey, you got to slow down. But I knew every single thing had to go right or it was over for Yavapai. It was over for my staff. It was really over for the state because we were just in such a highly toxic environment at that moment, you know? So I did what I could. We came out of it. We were in a perfect storm, a recipe for disaster. If things were going to go wrong, it should have been our county. Again, we lost everything all at once. We had our second bout of COVID in 2022. I mean, everything that could possibly lead to us failing was happening. But then our community, I always say we may be on opposite sides of the spectrum politically, but our community comes together when we need them. And I really feel like since being appointed and really being out talking to people and, you know, we're in an election right now, everything's going really smooth, you know, knock on wood. We did great during the PPE, but I feel like I'm blessed in the sense that when we need help, our community will help us. And I keep having to remind people and remind myself, we're all on the same side. We all want the same thing. We want free, accurate, fair elections. We want a safe place to live. You know, we want a community that cares about each other. And so I think that's kind of what kept me going through this process. I feel very fortunate to be here. I'm on the ballot right now, so I can't do everything I normally do. I will do signature verification. I will just sit there and pull tabs. I will help in tabulation. I'll do anything that anybody needs me to do, and I can't. I'm locked out of everything. My badge literally doesn't work. And it's making me crazy, which is why I'm here with all you fine folks today. Because normally I'd be like, no, I can't come do anything right now because I'm helping my team. So this is different for me. So every day I'm just like cringing because I just want to be there and help. So I just, again, you can't vote for me, obviously, because we're not of the same party, but I do feel like you have a right to know who I am, where I stand on things, what my views are on things. I'm not going to be somebody that's going to come and say something different to you than I would on my own side, because I feel like too many times you don't really know the people that are running for election because people are changing with the wind. I don't know how to be that person. I am who I am. You can love me or hate me, but at least you could say, well, I know where she stands on things. I feel like the election setup in Yavapai County and really for the state is very smart. A lot of people don't understand that we have two separate departments. I'm the face of elections in the sense that I'm the elected official, right? I'm the county recorder. But my job is not to tabulate votes. A lot of people get that confused. My side of the aisle, my side of the elections, we don't see the physical ballot. Now, Yavapai County, with that mass exodus of elected officials, election officials, we feel like there was a silver lining because we were all forced to learn both sides. I actually worked in the election side and it was black and white. I mean, night and day to what I've always known. Everything I know is voter registration, early voting, election side, tabulation, ballot management, e-poll books, vote centers, completely different everything. And several of our staff now have had both sides. So we feel like we're very well-rounded and have a broader experience than most because of that. So there is some silver lining to the heartache that we went through. So I'm responsible for early voting. I'm responsible for UOCAVA voters. That's our military and overseas voters. I'm responsible for everything vote by mail. I'm responsible for voter registration. I'm responsible for drop boxes. Drop boxes are extremely controversial, especially on my side of the aisle. But I don't give a shit about what my side of the aisle thinks when it comes to drop boxes. I give a shit about what my voters need and what is best for my voters. And living in a rural community, your mail, your voted ballots that I consider worth more than money, leave Yavapai County, go down to Phoenix for central processing through USPS and come back up. I'm not about that. When that is my responsibility to be the steward of your ballots, I want to keep those ballots within Yavapai County borders. Therefore, I'm being sued for drop boxes right now. And I said, let's debate this. Let's argue what is the most secure thing. I'm all about chain of custody. I want to know when your ballot leaves your hands, who touched it. The only way for me to know that is you either go vote in person or you put it in a drop box, because that comes from your hands to my people. I don't know your postal carrier. I don't know the truck driver driving your ballots to Phoenix. I don't know the people at the central processing in Phoenix. I don't know the truck driver bringing it back up. I don't know the local post office staff. Those are 5 different areas somebody's touching your ballot through a process that I don't know. On top of that, after every single election, we get usually hundreds of ballots that come days, sometimes months after the election. I don't care what the narrative is out there in the universe. If you want your ballot to be counted and guaranteed that it gets to my hands on time, use a drop box or go vote in person. If you choose to use the mail, and I'm not trying to bash USPS. That's not my intention. Again, you are my priority, not USPS, not anyone else. If you're going to use the mail, make sure that you mail your ballot back plenty of time before. Because again, you're thinking of all this process that it takes to get to and from. And then go on my.arizona.vote and make sure you can actually put your credentials in and get into the live version of what I see and verify that that ballot has made it to me. Because again, hundreds of ballots after the fact is a problem for me. And again, I'm not saying that's USPS, that could be procrastinators, because we have obviously lots of that, human behavior and all. But my whole existence is to make sure that Yavapai County continues to have the highest voter turnout in the state, consecutively Yavapai votes, and to make sure that those votes are received by me by 7 p.m. Today, yes, is the last day to request a ballot. If you know independent voters, if independent voters are on the ABLE or the active early voter list, those voters have to tell us which ballot they want. If they don't tell us, they don't get a ballot. So we sent out 90-day notices explaining this. We put out lots of social media, talked on the radio a lot about this. We want to make sure they understand that, because we're not automatically going to pick a side for them, right? Independent voters are not a recognized party in Arizona. So independent, other, unaffiliated, all of those groups are just people that say, hey, my values aren't aligning with any of these specific political parties. So I kind of want to be the free thinker and, you know, have a different thought on this. But they're not a recognized political party. So they have to go through some extra steps depending on the circumstances of which election we're in. No Labels is a newly recognized party. The Green Party just got newly recognized in the state, and I believe in a few counties individually, including Coconino, I think. No Labels is kind of the unicorn right now. I thought they were going to be the independent party, you know, like we were hearing rumors of maybe they're going to kind of pull from each side and have some kind of unifying ticket. What was interesting is No Labels, I think, became officially recognized like last November. And then shortly after, they sued the Secretary of State not to allow any candidates to run under that ticket. So No Labels voters, in my personal opinion, truly are being disenfranchised right now. I have 900 of them in Yavapai County, and those people are receiving a ballot that has nothing on it. It's a blank ballot, not an option for a write-in, because they sued not to allow anybody to run under their tickets. So they're literally getting a blank ballot with a little sentence saying, sorry, your party said no. How unfair is that, right? It's just the strangest thing. And we tried to reach out to them. I was really frustrated about it. I sent every single one of these people a letter explaining this. And I don't know what to think about that. So I have some opinions about certain things. And if you ask me a question, you'll get my opinion. You may not like it, but I'll give it to you. If you are more interested in learning more about the process, every county gets to run the process differently. Elections still are held on a local level, and we are what's called a bottom-up state, which means down to the county level, we actually have some authority over where, how, and what we do when we conduct an election. So my process is different than Coconino County's. We use different election management systems. They're on ES&S along with 13 other counties. Well, they're included in the 13. We use Unison, and Maricopa uses Dominion. So we actually have a completely different process on how we tabulate ballots, how we do that. Some states have some counties have vote centers. Some have precinct level voting, some are a hybrid in between. Yavapai County, we have a vote center model. What that means is you can vote anywhere in the county at any of those locations. You go there, we check you in, we know exactly what precinct you live in, dial it down, and we will give you a ballot style that matches your individual area. You're gonna see people that say, wait a minute, this person's not on my ballot or something's wrong. Last week I got a call from a man, he was in his 80s, and he swore up and down that the Board of Supervisors race was not on his ballot. I said, oh, that's impossible. We know it's on there. And he said, and then I talked to somebody that's, he was somewhere in the Verde. Then I talked to somebody in Cottonwood or something, and it's not on theirs either. And I'm going, okay, now you're making me think, like, what's going on here? And sure enough, he was looking for a specific candidate that he wasn't qualified to vote for, therefore the candidate's not on his race. He wasn't looking at the race, he was looking for a name. And he said, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize. And I said, it's okay. We have 733 different ballots for this election right now.
Just in yet.
Just in Yavapai. 733 different ballot styles. So your ballot is probably different than others in this room, because it dials down to the exact location where you lay your head at night. You're going to have different fire districts, different school districts, different city and towns. You're going to have different races depending on where you live. So everything, and then on top of that, we have 5 different recognized parties going on, so we have all of these things going into this at the same time. So when you say, well, how hard is it to get a ballot right? We're all getting the same ballots. No, not at all. I think Maricopa was over 20,000 different ballot styles. So again, this is the stuff that I got schooled on when I got into this, because I'm going, how hard is it to program a ballot, right? It doesn't work that way. And then we get a lot of times, well, what do you do when there's not an election going on? There's always an election going on. We have 4 consolidated election dates a year. And then during a presidential year, we have 5, because now we have a PPE, which throws everybody off. And everyone says, is this something new? No, this is something that happens every 4 years. And it really depends on if the party is participating or not. So Republicans in 2020, they had their guy, so they didn't even participate. So it's been 8 years since Republicans voted in that style of an election. So there are all these things going on that I feel like are the things that I've had light bulb moments on. So those are the kind of things I try to talk about, because you go, whoa, I left there knowing something that I didn't know before, right? So what are your questions? Because I could go on for hours. Yes, sir.
So this is going to be maybe rather complicated. Given all the reporting that's been coming out last few days about, and I'm sorry to say this, the Republican Party planning to really ramp up everything from voter intimidation to pulling together a team of poll watchers for different places in the country, including Arizona, ramping up the number of lawyers who are going to contest elections. I don't know how much the reporters are involved in this, but in Yavapai and Coconino specifically, do you monitor or approve the registration of poll watchers from the different parties? Do you keep an eye on that? Just what's your concern about these kind of stories that are coming out?
I feel like I embrace people coming and watching what we do. I feel like everybody has a right to do that. Every time we have an observer in my building or at a location where I'm at, I go and sit with that person. And I say, do you have any questions? What do you think you're seeing right now? And a lot of times their interpretation of what's happening is actually different than what's actually happening. So I take those times to actually sit and say, no, this is what they're doing with this. Oh, I thought that was signature verification. No, that was adjudication, or that was this or that. So I actually don't mind observers. I don't mind people out at these locations watching what's being done, because if we're doing it right, why should I, right? I know coming into this, like I said, as a skeptic of the election side, how much education helps, right? We do a follow your ballot tour We have a waiting list for it, but any person that wants to know and understand how the process works in Yavapai County can sign up for this tour. And we will literally have you vote a cookie ballot, a real live ballot. We will have you sign the affidavit. We will have you put it in a Dropbox. We will open the Dropbox, pull it out, let you see the security of the Dropbox, let you see all the chain of custody documents that are going through the process and how we track by computer, by physical pieces of paper, where your ballot is, who had it, what date it was, all of the stuff. And 99.9%, everybody walks out and goes, wow, I trust that system so much more after I seen it, after I understood the chain of custody and understood the audit and understood that you can't just slip ballots into the process. That's what I like. So I my eyes and ears are open. And I'll be honest with you, I hear and see things going on sometimes and I go, what the hell was that? How could that have happened, right? But then I have to look back and go, okay, let's learn from whatever that mistake was, because there's gonna be mistakes. We're human. This still is a human process. We're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. But I feel like the more we allow people to see the process, the more we are there educating people on the process, the more we have people involved in the process, the more we can help calm the temperament. That's just my personal opinion, my personal experience with it.
What is election day like for you? Are you like in your car all day and you're like a doctor who's on call and you're running around?
Yes. Look, 2022 general, I made it to 8 vote centers. So I was up at 5:30 in the morning. So here's one of those situations. I'm getting up, getting ready to leave because polls open at 6 a.m. Our staff, I was on the election side at that time, even though I had already been appointed as recorder. We didn't have an elections director, so I was working both sides. Election morning, we were there till about 9:30 p.m. the night before. Before the election day, Monday before, every vote center, all the poll workers get together. They open everything up and they do a trial. They make sure everything's talking to each other. All their supplies are there. They audit everything that we give them to make sure tomorrow morning it's going to go as planned, right? So what? 9 hours? 8 hours the night before, we get our last vote center that says, all right, we're ready to go. Everything's good. We're shutting down. We'll be back 5:30 a.m. I kid you not, you can't even make this up. I'm getting my boots on and I'm getting ready to hop in the car and I get a call saying, Michelle, the call center's down. Something's wrong. We don't know what's going on, but we can't get calls. The call center is a central location where we're communicating with all the vote centers, all the marshals, all the inspectors, all the observers, everybody's, like we're watching what's going on. And the vote center's down. We were just there 8 hours before. What do you mean the vote center's down? And all of a sudden we're going, okay, polls are opening in 20 minutes, Yavapai votes. So we had lines waiting outside all of these places and people are calling, trying to check in and ask questions and we're down. We in Yavapai try to be proactive. We carry around portable generators. We carry around flashlights, because you expect the unexpected, right? Nobody expected this one. And it turned out about 30 minutes later, we had ITS, we had facilities, we had vendors, we had everybody on site at this central location. It was a darn phone jack. One phone jack within 7 hours from the night before was out and it just stopped everything. You literally can't make that up, right? Like there are acts that are beyond our control, right? And then that morning, right after that, I get in my car and I'm going and visiting vote centers, making sure everything's going okay. And I get a call from a reporter saying, hey, we heard you're having an issue with your printers. And I'm going, no, I think you got the wrong person, right? I don't know what's happening yet in Maricopa. And as soon as I'm on the phone with this person saying, I don't know what you're talking about, on my way to another location, I'm getting a call now from the call center that's working. And there was an issue with a printer. As soon as they say, hey, we have somebody running over here to find out what's going on with this printer. Again, how can it not be working now when it was working the night before, right? I start going, what the hell's going on, right? And so I have a team deployed over there. I hang up the phone and everything starts beeping and it's saying printers are down all over in Maricopa. And I'm going, oh my God, is there like some big conspiracy going on? Is there something big happening? Are we having some sort of attack? Is something happening? Thank God for us, it was a poll worker error. The poll workers got there in the morning and skipped a step. So it didn't make their e-poll book talk to the printer. So as soon as he got there, he got it going, but they were down for a good 20, 25 minutes because we had to figure out why isn't this working? And we figured out what it
If
was.
you feel any better, it happened to Microsoft this morning. So.
Yes, I heard. I was listening going, well, okay. So, I mean, things happen. Things are going to go wrong. All we can do is prepare to the best of our ability. Again, we're human. Human error is a thing. And all I can say is we're doing the best we can with the cards that we're dealt. But again, going back to your question, I understand why people are skeptical of it because you see all these things go wrong. You see I've seen things go wrong. If I wasn't sitting there, I would be like, how the hell did the whole call center go down, right? I mean, it's our instinct to question things, right? So for me, I try not to take it personally, and I do sometimes. I get a little riled up, but I try not to take it personally when people are skeptical of the system or skeptical of my office or skeptical of me, because I've been there, I understand it. And I have to embrace that people aren't comfortable with everything going on in elections, but all I can do is let them know what we're doing to address things as they come. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question. People can vote in person in Sedona if they live in Coconino. And I was wondering who opens the box that the drop off for the ballots in Sedona.
That's our office. It's our drop box. So it's Yavapai County. Yes, and we get a lot of Coconino County voters use that same drop box. So we will actually transfer those ballots to Patty and her team.
With the Yavapai.
Yes,
Okay.
with that Yavapai. Sedona and one other one, we get a lot of yeah, we get a lot of mismatched ballots because, you know, people are kind of on the outskirts right there. So we make sure that Patty is getting those ballots ASAP.
And just one other question. Is there security at that ballot box? Are there cameras? Are there ways of preventing something?
There is.
Fire.
There is. So when I decided that we're gonna fight the fight for drop boxes, I really had to start thinking about this. And Yavapai County was the birth of the Dropbox watch situation that everybody knows about, right? So I had some people from our county come into my office and say, hey, we're going to start this situation with drop boxes because we're worried about ballot harvesting and, you know, all this great stuff. And I said, I understand why you feel that way, but you need to be careful and tread lightly because Yavapai County is very unique in the sense that we have people that want to be so involved and feel like, you know, they're a part of something, they're a part of a process. So I had people, it was really interesting. All the media kind of ended up going towards Maricopa with the Dropbox watch situation, but it really started up here and I was dealing with it, but it was all being, you know, televised down there, which I was kind of thankful for. But I had people calling saying, where do I sign up? I want to help. I had people calling saying, I'm uncomfortable to go to a Dropbox now because, you know, I'm uncomfortable if somebody's sitting there, you know, with a firearm or taking pictures. Then I had people saying that SOB better not be taking a picture of me or we're going to have a problem. So I was getting all this feedback from all sides, and I understand all sides of why they feel the way they do. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I really thought after that election cycle, I was going to get rid of them. I was going to get rid of drop boxes, and that was me being selfish of it's not worth the headache, right? It's not worth the calls and the people complaining on all sides. And I thought, I'm just going to get rid of them and then I don't have to deal with it. And then I actually had to come back down to earth and really think about it. What does my county do? How do my voters vote? And we had 124,871 ballots cast in that 2022 general election. And over 71,000 of those ballots got returned by a drop box. So overwhelmingly, my voters chose to use the drop box. And then as I finished the election and continued to see those ballots come through, and I continued to get calls from people that said, I sent my ballot back, I didn't get voter credit, I started to realize, wait a minute, this isn't about me right now. This is about you. This is about Yavapai. This is about your ballots and being sure that they get counted. So we thought, what can we do to make sure we are giving the most secure options to our voters? So if you think about it, there's physical security, right? So we have motion censored, night visioned, solar powered cameras on every drop box. And they're looking straight at you, right? If you walk up, you're looking straight at it. They also have very small slots. You can't dump a bunch of stuff in there at once. Everyone is keyed differently. There's no master key, 2 different locks, not numbered, not identified, no location on it. All the legs are hidden, not exposed, so there's no way to like unbolt it and walk off with a drop box. Fire suppression systems inside, so nobody can drop something in and try to burn your ballots. We do not let people know what our schedules are for pickup. We don't want somebody who potentially would be a bad actor to know, oh, this is probably the time it's the fullest. We don't want anybody to know that. And we want to make sure we're keeping our staff safe, of course. Then you think about the opposite of that. And I have at 7 p.m. on election night, there's somebody standing at every box, 7 p.m. prompt. That box gets locked up, those ballots get pulled, come back to our office. So anything that made it to that box at that time, we know is going to be counted. If somebody were to harvest ballots, right? Somebody's going to go and pay for a bunch of people to vote a certain way, or somebody's going to go pick up ballots from wherever, however people think they're going to get these ballots and drop them into the system. For one, if you're going to harvest a ballot, you have to know, especially in my county, because Yavapai votes, I'm going to go down a street and I know Michelle sent out ballots on July 3rd. So they should be hitting the mail by probably Saturday or maybe Monday, July 5th and 7th, right? You know, given time to get back up here and get to all these areas. And I'm going to go down this street and I'm going to just open some boxes and take some ballots, right? And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to vote them. And then I'm going to just sign that person's name. Obviously, we know signature verification is a thing. And again, when I came into this, I thought, okay, how accurate is signature verification? I got schooled because we're not even looking at the signature for, you know, oh, is it spelling Ellen Ferriera perfectly and, you know, all that. We're looking at the characteristics, and every single person, your characteristics, no matter how you try to write different, they're there. And we're tracking in our system all of your signatures that we've had from the DMV, from previous ballots, from every time you've registered to vote. We're collecting all of that information. So when I scan your ballot in, I'm seeing 10, 23 different signatures, and it is very apparent immediately if this is your signature. But besides the signature side of it, you're going to have somebody that took ballots, right, or stole your ballots, whatever the circumstances, they're going to have to know that you, as a voter, are not going to call me and say, hey, Michelle, I know you sent my ballots out on the 3rd and it's the 10th and I still haven't got it. And what am I going to do? I'm going to make that other ballot a dead ballot, which means we cancel it out. So it doesn't matter if somebody else got a hold of it. It doesn't matter at all. We are issuing you a new ballot. And if that ballot came back through the system somehow, the system is actually set up. Nope, that ballot's been canceled. It's a dead ballot. It doesn't matter who got it, where it's at. It can no longer be accepted. So there are these safeguards and audits put in place with that. But one more thing, and I'll get to you. If you were to harvest ballots, and let's say something happened and I went to the Oak Creek ballot box, and I know exactly whose ballot was in there. I know who touched them. I know what time it was. We have all this documentation. There was 120 ballots in here. I know every single voter that's on this, in this batch, and I know who picked it up, what time, the condition of the box. Did it look like something was tampered with, right? And then they come back to my office and we start our process and we get to the point of signature verification. This 120 ballots, all of a sudden we start noticing we're looking for anomalies. Wait a minute, there's a bunch of these with a specific baby blue pen or a purple pen or something just that you go, oh, that's interesting. How can this many people have used that weird pen? Or we start doing it and several of them are canceled. Because and then we start going, wait a minute, this is unusual. Why do we have so many canceled ballots in this batch here? All these things start to, you know, if they were starting to add up, I can literally say, Sheriff Rhodes, I have 120 people from this day, from this time, that have been collected in this batch, and I think something's wrong. We have a better way to audit and find an issue using the Dropbox. Now, let's say that same ballot harvester said, I'm going to go use a blue USPS box. By the way, I have 19 drop boxes with all that physical security throughout Yavapai County. We have 59 blue USPS drop boxes and thousands of personal mailboxes that have no security on them, right? If that same person were to drop it in a blue USPS box, I can't tell what box it came from. I can't tell who touched it, when they touched it, when it was put in there, or where it came from. So everything I do is about ballot security. Those ballots are worth more than money. Those ballots are our future, right? So everything I do is the thought process of how am I going to protect Yavapai County and their votes? Until somebody tells me differently or proves me wrong, that's kind of how I roll. Everything I do is what is best for Yavapai. Yes, George.
Okay. There are a couple of related questions. First of all, the question that Steve raised about people, poll watchers or people watching drop boxes. One of the reasons, and again, we may have political differences on this, but there is a not only security factor, but there's also the potential for intimidation. And I know, particularly within minority communities, there's a lot of concern that they may be targeted for various reasons, which gets to this related question, and it's the one coming up from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision yesterday, which is very convoluted, but it has to do with the fact that in Arizona, there's a two-track system. You can vote as a certified or validated citizen of the United States in Arizona general elections, or you can attest to being a US citizen and you're still qualified for federal elections for the president and the congressional positions and senator. What role does the recorder have in trying to ease the possibilities for people who actually have the right to vote, not feeling intimidated into not voting? And I really am putting this forward to both you and to Aubrey to answer.
So when you're saying intimidated by poll observers per se,
Intimidated by a process.
Okay.
For example, it's very difficult for certain people to get proof of citizenship that meets particular criteria.
okay,
And I, for example, I could not get a driver's license that was acceptable in Arizona to prove that I was a citizen. So right now, I cannot use my driver's license because it was very difficult. Now I'm have all kinds of education, I have a background, and it was difficult for me. I mean, I finally had to send to the state of New York to get a authorized thing. But my point is, for other people, particularly with people who have less education, it's much more difficult for them to go through this process, to have the stamina to do it. So I think a lot of people who are legally entitled to vote are often discouraged or not able to do it. So I was just wondering how you see this whole process.
so I think you're
And how
referring
Aubrey-
to the federal voter side of it right now.
No, I'm talking
With the
about.
Ninth
state-
Circuit Court of
Yeah.
Appeals.
Well, what the Arizona State Legislature passed in 2022 two laws which required proof of citizenship
Yes.
to vote at the federal level as well as at the local.
Right. So Arizona has what's called a bifurcated system. The National Voter Registration Act has been in effect for years and years. And the EAC has what's called a federal voter registration form. And whenever somebody signs a voter registration form, whether it's the federal or the state, they're attesting at the bottom, I am over the 18 and I am a US citizen. Federal law currently says that's all you need. You say you're a US citizen, we're taking your word for it. My side of the aisle, especially up in Congress right now, is trying to pass what's called the SAVE Act. Obviously with what we're seeing, you know, with the border and all that, they feel like we need to put the burden back on the voter to prove they're a US citizen in order to vote a ballot and potentially, you know, affect an outcome of an election. I personally agree with this. That's just my opinion, that I don't want somebody who's not a US citizen voting in my elections. That's my political stance. But that's not the law right now. The law says if somebody fills out a voter registration form and they attest that they are a US citizen, we have to take their word for it. We have to accept it. So what happened, I believe it might have been around 2012, 2014. Don't quote me on that. The Secretary of State at the time, Ken Bennett, actually this was litigated. It's been litigated all over the country over and over and over because states are feeling like, hey, there should be some requirement, just like it is for the MVD, like you're saying. If you want an Arizona driver's license, you have to show proof of citizenship. You have to take a birth certificate, a passport, blah, blah, blah.
The new one will. I got an Arizona driver's license. I don't have to show proof of citizenship for that. What they require is residency and attestation that you are a citizen. So what I'm saying is that this bifurcation exists. And
Yeah. So we're one of very few states that have what this bifurcated system is. So what happened with the Secretary of State back then was they said, hey, we want the voter to prove that they're a US citizen in order to vote in our elections. And federal law trumps state law. Federal law says them signing that form is proof. So Ken Bennett at the time said, okay, well, I can't have any authority over federal elections, but I do have an authority over state elections. So what they did was created what's called a bifurcated system. So we have Fed voters, which means somebody says they're a US citizen, but they haven't shown documented proof of it. And then we have full voters, which are people that have actually proven their citizenship. And we run HAVA checks where it's running the MVD, it's running Social Security, it's running all these different agencies. And we'll try to find your citizenship information. So if you are a Fed voter, which means, let's say you moved here from California, right? I moved here from California. My first time I went to try to get a driver's license, they said, oh, you need this, you need a birth certificate. And well, shoot, like I don't have that with me. Had to go back, had to come do it again. If I had registered to vote at that time with my California license, they would have said, hey, we're not accepting your California license because California doesn't require documented proof of citizenship to get a license. So I would have had to give them some sort of a birth certificate, passport, something to that effect. That would allow me to vote a full ballot. That would allow me to vote for my position or for LD1 congressional seats, all that stuff. But we have a lot of Californians that come here and they're not prepared to have those documents when they sign up to vote, right? They're going to fill out a form and say, hey, I'm at the cutoff of July 1st. I need to get registered to vote. We have to, by law, allow them to register, but we make them a Fed voter until they give us the proof of citizenship to be a full voter. What that means is they have a legal right to vote for any federal offices, which are going to be any federal congressional seats and the presidency. Right now in Yavapai, we have swings anywhere from like 175 to 200 Fed voters. That is a fluid list because you may be a Fed voter today and then you get us the information and you drop off. But then another person's coming into Arizona that doesn't have it or isn't prepared to give it to us at that time. So there are reasons for somebody to be on a Fed thing that they're kind of in limbo till they get us the documents.
I have to, can you time out and give Aubrey a chance?
Okay, sure.
So I think what I'm hearing in your question is the difference between proof of citizenship and proof of residency. Proof of residency was a newly formed law in the last couple of years in order to vote as an Arizona citizen in Arizona elections. It's a particularly difficult problem up in Coconino County where we have one of our 3 state universities and we have students coming in. Their addresses changing frequently if they're in the dorms, that they don't necessarily have a proof of residency if they don't have a utility bill because they're living in the dorms. There are a variety of things that can be used as proof of residency, utility bills with your name and an address on it. Your birth certificate is a proof of citizenship. The driver's license, of course, tribal ID, all that sort of stuff. I'm unsure where we went with the question. Can you repeat the question?
So essentially this has to do with limiting vote.
It does feel like a vote limitation.
When I say I had a problem getting proof of citizenship, it's because my whole life I was able to use the certificate from the hospital that I was born in.
Right.
And then they changed the law and said, no, states have to have a certificate of birth, which I had never applied for because I'd never needed it. My children, when they were born in Virginia, had the same thing. So I got both the certificate of birth from the hospital and the certificate of birth from the state of Virginia. My wife had the same problem when she tried to get it from New Jersey. It was like $50 for everybody, unless you happen to be born in Trenton. So fortunately, she was born in Trenton and got it for free. I had to pay $15, I think, to get it from the state of New York. And there are people who don't have $50 to get those kinds of certifications.
So the recorder's office has to work within the laws that we have in the state, in the country. We have to work within that parameter. Within that parameter, I think it's the recorder's job to make sure that somebody who wants to vote that we are able to assist them as much as possible in getting registered to vote and making sure that they have those hoops to jump through. I'm going to be new to this office. I have a lot to learn here as to how that goes. And I know we do have a large challenge with our student population up in Coconino County in particular. But I do think that I was unaware that we don't require a birth certificate or some sort of proof of residency to register to vote. It's been a while since I registered to vote. So that's news to me, but I think the distinction that you're making that is feeling restricted is this proof of residency versus proof of citizenship. Proof of citizenship allows you to vote for that federal only. And we do have a large moving list of federal only voters that the county recorder does contact and try to make them aware of what they are allowed to vote and what they aren't allowed to vote and what they need to go through to change that. Education is a huge piece of this. So, Ellen?
We did have problems, I remember several years ago with a Felicia French campaign. We tried to go to the college, to NAU, and so many of the kids couldn't get state registrations. They could register only to vote for the federal candidates, but not the state ones
Right.
because they didn't have their birth certificates.
Right.
That was a real problem. I
You
wanted
are
to-
allowed to send in images. You don't have to have the original birth certificate in order to prove that you have a birth certificate.
Yeah.
So you can have your parents take a picture of that birth certificate that they have at home and email it to the recorder's office.
So
And that
maybe
is
that's something
considered,
that
Right.
the county recorder's office should publicize around
Right.
universities
Mhm.
where we have people coming in. I wanted to ask you also, Aubrey, aside from the fact that after hearing all this, you still want to do this?
no, it gets, I go back and forth every hour. I do want to do it. Like, I agree with Michelle 100% that this is not a partisan office. This
Right.
is about the very core of what it means to live in a democracy where your vote does count.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to ask you also about the Navajo Nation and
Mhm.
drop boxes there. Well, any of the reservations. I mean, there are such great distances for
Mhm.
people to travel to get to the polling place.
right.
Are there a lot? Do you think there's sufficient drop boxes?
There are not a lot of drop boxes. What Patty has put in place and what is really important to continue and probably to expand is this program called mobile voting. They have a van with all their voting equipment and staff that travels out to various chapter houses on given dates to be available and accessible for those much more rural communities that maybe have to travel 100 miles by car if they have a car up there. And the mobile voting has been a really successful piece of giving access to our rural communities on the Navajo Nation. I don't know that they have a ton of drop boxes out there. I know they have some in Tuba City and some of the larger population centers and at the chapter houses, but they have a mobile vote system as well, where they go out in person and give them in-person voting options. And that's something that I think we could expand to rural areas all across the county.
Is that to register also, the vans?
You can register to vote whenever you choose to register to vote. Whether or not you have made a deadline for a certain election doesn't stop you from registering to vote. So yes, that is part of the county recorder's duties is voter
And
registration.
then on the Navajo reservation, can they use those vans to register also?
I do believe that they do voter registration as part of their services. They are only going out there during active election cycles to help people vote in an election.
So you had a question?
I have a question for Michelle. I was an election worker for many years, and that made me very hoarse. Sorry about that. I wish you would put a little bit more enthusiasm in your presentation. I know that this is a very personal job for you,
It is.
even though you say, you try to, knowing you from just this presentation alone, I know that you can take things very personally. And I'm wondering how you deal with with the prophecies that we're hearing about, if I don't win, it's a rigged election. Is there any truth to the rigging theory?
I've been asked a lot of times about my thoughts on what has potentially gone wrong within the last couple election cycles. There is some truth, in my opinion, to things that have gone wrong affecting an outcome of an election. I mean, that's just fact. That 25 minutes that machine was down in Chino Valley, easily somebody could have walked away that potentially wanted to cast a vote. I acknowledge that because that's just fact. We're humans and we're Americans. We don't wait in line unless it's for Starbucks, right? I mean, besides that, if I pull up somewhere and I won't even wait in line for a concert. I'm like, hell no, I'm not sitting there for 3 hours in August in Maricopa County while something's wrong, right? So things happen that I think have affected outcomes of elections. To the fact that it changed the outcome for sure, nobody will know. But there is another side to it that I look at also, like in 2020 at the voter cutoff for our election in November of 2020, the registration date was like October 5th. That was the last day. You have to be registered by 29 days before the election, right? This is the law. We get in the next day and we're still getting all these voter registrations coming through. We're going, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, is there a glitch? What's happening? We didn't find out until it was on the news that somebody sued last minute. I think it might have been Mi Familia Vota, but a third party sued and said, well, because it's COVID, we should have a longer or more chance or a longer option to register to vote. I don't agree with that because it's law. And I don't like a lot of the laws, but they're the laws and we should be following them. So what happened was all of a sudden, the Secretary of State is in litigation with this third party to extend the voter registration cutoff. And it wasn't until October 16th, don't quote me on the date, but it was a solid, a solid amount of time, a good 10 to 14 days, that we were still registering people to vote when statute says that was the cutoff. I don't agree with that. If that's the case and we want to expand or extend that voter registration time, that should be something that was done legislatively, not a third party suing last minute and changing the effect of that. And I think it ended up being like 90,000 more people got registered during that time. Fair game in politics and all, but the law is the law. And I don't think any one person or group or judge should be able to change election law. I just don't agree with it, whether it would have been benefiting my side or not. And I think more Republicans actually registered during that time. I still didn't agree with it because the law is the law. We should be following it as it's written. I saw back east, I don't remember if it was Connecticut or Wisconsin, wherever it was, a last minute lawsuit came through where they said, well, the 8 p.m. cutoff, everything's supposed to be in our hands by this certain time. Every state's different, blah, blah, blah. Somebody sued and said, no, because of COVID, we should allow these ballots to come in for several days after. That was not their law. And for a judge to make that decision, I don't agree with that. Again, it probably made a difference in this election in Arizona. It probably made a difference in some of those states. So now I see my side saying, hell yeah, we're going to have election lawyers ready to roll because we've seen that happen before, right? And in my side of the election side, I feel like there should be no opportunity for you to change election law during an election. That's like the Purcell doctrine, right? Helen Purcell, very known in Arizona, had went through litigation like this before where she said, no, we're not going to change the rules of engagement during an election. And I don't think a judge or a third party or anyone else, we should be stuck dealing with the rules that were set in place at the time the election started, not in the middle, not at the end. And that, again, I'm gonna be honest with you and you're gonna know how I feel about it. You may not agree with me, but that's just my opinion. Yes, sir.
Michelle, are you running unopposed on the Republican end? Are you the only candidate on the ballot?
Yeah, who the hell wants to do this, right? What are you doing?
What I'm getting at is, do you think that a Democrat didn't come forward because of what happened to the last recorder? And it kept people from being interested in running?
No, honestly, Yavapai County, where 2-1 Dem, it's gonna be a hard way for them to win, and I really think that's Republicans to Democrats, so I mean,
Is that really the breakdown?
yeah.
What about Coconino?
Coconino is much more Democratic
Right.
heavy. I think we have 40% registered in the Democratic
Okay.
Party, 25 in the Republican, and the rest independent or smaller parties, but
Okay.
yeah, it's
Wait,
much
wait.
more comfortable.
Let's have Chris, because we're heading toward.
Michelle, I want to thank you for being here and for being so honest. And I truly hope that you also go to Republican clubs. and
I do.
Talk about this, and I wonder if they listen to you. Because when I feel that all of these things we're dealing with now, that so many people feel that the elections are rigged, that people with assault rifles are standing outside voting centers, and that people are just scared, and that people's dogs are poisoned, and all these horror stories. I believe they didn't even exist before 2016, and I think the message is coming down from the top of your party, I'm sorry to say. And a lot of people are just not informed enough. Like you said, you thought it was already until you learned how it really works. So I think it's very important to get the message out, because people don't know better, so they believe what a person they believe in tells them. And I just think it's very sad what's happening. And you, I think, will be a wonderful spokesperson, and being Republican, they might listen to you much more than they would listen to me.
And I do, Chris. I'm very open and honest again about my experiences, who I am, what I am, how I am, and how I think. Most of the Republicans in Yavapai County are supportive. Again, when I have the people that don't like or trust the system, I'll spend an hour. Like, I mean, I could sit here all day and talk to you guys about this. Like, I barely touched on the tip of, what happens in elections. I feel like when I do talk and explain the chain of custody and the audit processes and the security measures we've taken, and show people that I'm passionate about this. Like, this is my life now. I eat, sleep, and drink elections. And you get a bug, you're gonna get a bug. And you and I are not gonna agree on so many things behind the scenes, but we're always gonna go like, hell yeah, we're here for the right reasons. You know what I mean? Like we're here because there's a calling for it. You can't help it. It's not fun. We don't get paid enough to do this. My husband tells me all the time, like, you got
a lot more than I was getting paid.
Yeah.
All my work
I don't get paid
was
enough.
volunteer.
Yeah. I don't get paid enough for the amount of hours I put in, but it's not about that. It's bigger than me, and it's bigger than my family. It's bigger than Yavapai. I feel very, very patriotic when I am helping people cast their votes. I just, it's really a gratifying situation. Yes, sir.
I got a good question. Okay. I got an email from the Secretary of State saying that he's being sued by the Republican Party to purge 500,000 voters from the voter rolls. If they're successful in that lawsuit, will I get a letter from you letting me know that I've been purged from the voter roll, or how will I find out I've been purged?
If you are, for whatever reason, canceled from the county, you would get a notification letting them know that. The lawsuit that you're referring to, for whatever reason, somehow there is some data being compared to current voter rolls and some information from the 2020 census and other stuff. I had a similar thing happen in 2022 where there was an article written where it said Yavapai County has 97% of people over the age of 18 that are eligible to vote are registered. That's absolutely not correct. Absolutely false. I actually tried to track down and talk to the reporter because, again, if you come at me with something wrong, I'm coming back. And I ended up writing up a whole thing about it, gave it to my political party because they're the ones that were reading this and asking questions about it. And it's factually incorrect. And out of all things, I don't trust the census. I don't think it was accurate. I think Arizona has way more people than what it counted. And a lot of my people on my side think the same way, but all of a sudden we're going to use that as fact when it comes to fitting a narrative for a lawsuit. No, I don't roll that way.
So I would be.
You're going to know what I think.
I would be
right?
notified if I've been.
Yes, you would.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
our last question,
So,
Maureen?
your walk the ballot, the tours that you offer,
Mhm.
since, most of us wouldn't probably take advantage of that, as inviting as it sounds, couldn't you be videotaped or televised or something and do?
I am in the process of trying to figure out how to do that. I feel like I saw Stephen Richard do it in Maricopa a while back where he kind of walked through the processes. I still feel like it's not as, you're not going to soak it up as well as being there, because we have a lot of time in between where you ask questions that like, oh, nobody's ever asked me that before. I'm going to put that into it next time type stuff. It's very interactive, but I am working on, hopefully, if I get a slow moment, to try to see if I can work with our public information officer and get snippets of each thing and make it like a series to let people see the process that can't potentially make it all the way to Fair Street.
Great. All right, thank you. I think you guys are heroes. There have been, we talked about the turnover in Yavapai County, but statewide in Arizona, it is almost every county that has lost important election officials because of intimidation, because why the hell am I putting up with this or putting my family through this for what? I mean, and so they're leaving and we're losing that historical continuity when these people leave, and it's really sad. You guys have done a great job and I appreciate you both so much for driving here from your distant locations and being here with us today. Thanks, George, for arranging this.
Thank you.
If you have questions, these gals will be here for a little while longer. I know you've got an appointment you got to rush up to.
Yeah, I can stay until about 11:40, probably.
Okay, all right. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. Next month, we're going to have the Clean Slate for Democracy running in LD1. And some of our people from the Democratic Coordinated Campaign that are stationed here and in Flagstaff, and we'll hear about what it is that they're doing. So thank you, and we'll see you hopefully soon.
Thank you for having me.